Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the top 5 hardest characters with the possibly highest skill cap in Smash Ultimate. Now, please keep in mind this is just going to be my own opinion, and I'm kind of making this as a follow-up video similar to my last top 5 because you guys really seem to enjoy that, giving an updated opinion on an old topic that everyone seemed to enjoy. So if you want to check either out the old topic or my last video, top right screen right now is going to be a card for plays with that. With that in mind, thank you guys for watching, and let's get going. Duck Hunt is the first character that I'm going to be bringing out right here, and I do want to mention that a lot of the other projectile characters like him, like, Young Link, like Pac-Man, you could also probably put in this spot. They're all kind of similar, but I'm going to personally be putting Duck Hunt right here. But they are kind of on the same plane, at least in my own personal opinion. So the thing that makes Duck Hunt so difficult is the fact that you have to learn all the angles of his cannon. You have to learn all the timings with this character. You have to learn how to effectively use his projectiles offensively and defensively, and that's really tricky. Now, I'm going to be saying right here that at a mid-level and high level, it can be pretty hard to play this character, and it can also be pretty hard to play the majority of projectile characters. But I know what you're thinking. For most players, it's not really. At a low level and against most of your friends, you are just spamming projectiles, you are throwing out every single thing you possibly can, chucking out those smash attacks, and you'll win as simple as that. And honestly, you are 100% right. That is just kind of how it works with a lot of these characters. It's very hard to play against projectiles at a low level. But as you start to climb against better and better players, as you start to play against the people that are the top of your weeklies, the top of your monthlies, that's where these characters start to get really difficult. And the main reason for that is because your spam just doesn't really work anymore. Playing these characters brainlessly doesn't really work anymore. And if you do that, and if you throw your projectiles too much, and essentially just makes your opponent can play around you so that your opponent can start getting in on you. And if they get in on you, these characters have horrible disadvantage states. They'll get a ton of damage, they'll kill you super early, while it's really hard for you to kill them early, and it kind of becomes troublesome. Now, for this character, I'm going to say that you really, once you get to a higher level, have to start to learn how to use your projectiles to make traps, to trick your opponents, and to create openings for combo strings. And all those just don't come for free. You do have to put in some time in the lab, and you do have to learn how to use your projectiles to effectively work together to do that, while creating a wall, while also potentially making some ways to go in on the offense. Now, the final thing I'm going to say that makes, again, these characters kind of hard to play once you get a little better is the fact that a lot of times your opponents can just jump a lot or just shield your smash attacks, and it makes it really hard for you to kill. In some cases, you can get like a backer at 130, 140, and it still won't be killing. So yeah, that can be kind of hard to deal with, can be kind of hard to learn, and you really have to think outside the box to get kills, which again, I think personally makes them a little bit harder to pull out. Lucario is the next character I wanted to talk about because this character is kind of interesting. Now, in general, I'm going to say that charge shots are some of the most skill-expressive things in the game. They allow you a ton of movement, they give you so much mobility, you can cancel them to run up at your opponent, get a grab, maybe you aren't going to do it, you're going to shoot your opponent, maybe you cancel it and attack your opponent, which is an A button, or try to bait your opponent and then go for it. There's just a lot you can do. You can go all over the place on, places with platforms, or even on a D, do quite a bit, and I think it's just super interesting. But of course, charge shots are super hard to utilize, and Lucario has one of those. Now, especially though when you compare Lucario to other charge shot characters, which are in general pretty simple, like, characters such as Samus or characters like Mewtwo, I think that's kind of where he shines as being the harder one. Now, first off, one reason is because just his charge shot itself, that being his Aura Sphere, is actually very weird and kind of inconsistent because, of course in general you could just, charge it up and then shoot at far range, and that's great, but it also has the ability to get right up on your opponent, use it, start charging it, and then cancel it and get like a free up smash or get like a free nair or free bear, all of that, which I think gives him a lot of potential, but also is really hard to do, and especially in Smash Ultimate, it just feels very inconsistent. You have to kind of know exactly where your opponent is going to be DIing, exactly where they're going, and sometimes you just kind of have to read what they're going to be doing before they even get hit by the move. It's very awkward, and I think makes it very difficult to play this character, because in a lot of cases you have to get that in order to get kills with this character, which yeah, it does kind of hurt. Now, other than his charge shot, which of course is a very important and a very difficult thing to maximize and to utilize in every game, you also just have to be very smart with Lucario to play him, I feel like, because while you could just stay back and spam charge shot all the time, and that's kind of all you do with Aura Sphere, you also, if you ever want to go in, don't have too many amazing options, and you have to be very smart about it. While he does have great airspeed, honestly, if you just run in and you play brainless, you're going to lose. His forward air isn't way too big, his nair isn't really too big, his space back air can be great if you have a ton of aura, but it still isn't way too big, and if you just go in, you're probably going to lose. You do have to play really well, you do have to use your movement very well, and unfortunately, he doesn't have any really free, fast, giant hitboxes. He doesn't really have any free, fast, giant kill moves, especially before like 80%. And speaking of that, Aura in this game isn't really as free as it was in the last game. In the last game, I mean, you could just jank stocks at like 60, 70, 80% on your opponent. In this game, it's quite a bit harder. It also, you have to always think about if you want to take more damage to get kills, or if you want to just play very smart and not be taking damage. Overall, it makes a very, very tricky character. Megaman, I believe, is extremely hard to play because he is just not like any other character really at all. He isn't a character that you can just spam smash attacks with, or that you can just kind of spam arrows with. He isn't a character that you can just kind of pull out and do amazing with. He's not like a Palatine, he's not a Lucina, he's not any of those. You can't just pick up and play Mega Man, and if you do, you're probably just gonna lose. That's just kind of how it is. Now, learning how to play this character is so weird because you have to learn how to effectively use his pellets, and that is one of the most tricky things in the game, I'm gonna say. At least one of the most tricky things to get down 100%. Because for most players, what you get good at is spacing a lot of your aerials, learning when to go in with your tilts, and as Mega Man, you still have to do that. But you also have to think, when should I be using pellets? When should I be ignoring my opponent? When should I be trying to take on that extra percent? When should I be using these to try to get in? When should I be using these to try to wall out? How do I use these along with all my other aerials, along with all my projectiles? It does add up to something that is very unique and very difficult, and I think most people can't really do it that well. I think, at least for myself and for pretty much everyone I know, you can't just really pick up and play Mega Man and do well. Sometimes you can get a little bit of jank, but yeah, it's hard to be consistent with him compared to some other ones. Now, in addition to this, I feel like his down B and side B, they're pretty basic projectiles. His smash attacks are, pretty cool, kind of basic-ish. But another move that is just extremely interesting is going to be his neutral B. And this is just kind of a different story. Now, if you can become a god with Mega Man's neutral B, if you can just, shoot it right under you, grab it, and then Z-drop it, you can do so much with this move. You can use it as a kill confirm, you can actually neutral B, Z-drop it, jump on your opponent, do it again, and actually get essentially like an infinite going on. You can use it for great shield pressure, actually poke through shields sometimes, and you could do so much with the Z-drop neutral B, or the Z-drop metal blade. But it's just so hard. It is just so incredibly hard. Barely any players can do it, and even the ones that can do it are very inconsistent with it. Honestly, it's kind of similar to Link's Z-drop. It's just such a hard thing to do, but if someone could get that down potentially and could know exactly when to go in as a zoner in close range with this move, which is by itself really hard to do, well, kudos to you. That's extremely hard to do, but as well, extremely high skill capped. I'm gonna say that Sheik has been one of the hardest characters to play, at least ever since Smash 4 in all the Smash games. In Melee she was pretty darn easy, gonna be honest, probably one of these characters. But ever since Smash 4, very difficult. Now the thing is that at first sight, she doesn't seem way too bad to play because she does have a lot of quick, good range tools that are all pretty safe. But then you realize that in these games, you need to hit your opponent like 4 times in neutral, while they only have to hit you once back. And that's kind of like an even trade in general. And yeah, that kind of comes to the point where you have to, in a lot of cases, outplay your opponent a decent amount. Now sure, it is a lot easier for you to outplay your opponent neutral because you are so safe, you are so quick, but still, you do have to be very, very consistent doing that, because if you don't, well, you're gonna kind of get murked, along with the fact that you are super light, while a lot of other characters are just in general a lot heavier than you. Now, Sheik has always been a very technical character that rewards players that can keep up with the pressure, keep up with the speed that she has, that can perfectly space all of her aerials, and go in with maximum safety, but of course that's hard to do. In a lot of cases, you go in a little bit too close, you get up behind a shield, you're taking like 20%, that's going to be like 2 combos for yourself. Just kidding, but it's going to be a lot of time. And yeah, it's hard to play around that. It's hard to be patient enough to play this character, especially in Ultimate when she got quite a bit worse at one thing, that being killing. Now, Sheik in the past has always kind of had trouble with killing, even in Smash 4 wasn't the easiest thing. But in Ultimate, I mean, it's even worse. She doesn't really have a free kill move at all. You can't spam a smash attack to kill, you can't spam an aerial to kill, you can't really spam a special to kill. You just have to learn how to perfect edge guarding and how to perfect her few potential kill combos, mainly into up smash. And that's kind of how it is. This makes her in a lot of cases feel kind of unplayable to you if you don't know how to play Sheik, as she doesn't really have a die button. Most characters kind of have a die button, she doesn't really. I think that makes her very difficult, along with everything else that she has. And while professional Sheik players can do quite well with this character, I think for the average player, it's really hard to get that much out of her. Finally, we're on to Shulk, and I'm gonna be honest here, I think Shulk is probably like a top 5 character, potentially in Smash Ultimate. I could see him as potentially the best character in Smash Ultimate if someone could perfect every single thing this character can do. Will that ever happen though? I don't think so, and that's kind of the unfortunate thing about Shulk. He has so much that he can do, and he's always been Mr. Potential in every single game, but oftentimes he's just that, potential. Oftentimes he is just a character with a big sword that has mediocre frame data. And, that isn't bad in itself, but it misses so much that this character can do. Now, If we talk about Shulk, even before all of his potential, even before all of his arts and all of that, he still is a pretty unique character to play, and I'm gonna say somewhat difficult character to play because while he does have the longest range in his sword out of all the sword characters, he doesn't really have any mashing options, and you do have to play very well, you have to play very spacingly, you have to be very patient, because if you just spam a ton of options, a lot of times your opponent can wait those out, they can parry them out, get in close, and then you can't really do way too much, unless you have shield art up, of course. And yeah, you do have to just, in general, be amazing at spacing, which by itself can be kind of hard to perfect. Now, after that, after you get good at spacing with Shulk, let's say you never use your arts, and let's say you start using your arts, you have to realize that you have to utilize all 6 arts, and keep in mind that these all change so much of his stats. They change how fast you move, they change his jump speed, they change his damage taken and damage given, his knockback taken and his knockback given, and in every situation you have to be thinking when you should use which art, in which situation to boost your advantage, and also when to use which art and disadvantage in order to just help yourself out of his naturally not the best disadvantage. And there's so much time when you always have to think, should I be using this art or that art, or what should I be doing, and if I use my jump art now, will I not have that later, if I need to edge guard, or if I need to go off stage and have to recover. There's so much potential thinking with this character, and so much potential just that you have to get in your head. And while it is extremely fun to play with that, honestly, if you can't use them all correctly, and if you just mess them up, or if you just SD with them, of course, it can make them a lot worse. Now, add this to the fact that he also has potentially some extremely busted tech that is essentially just like impossible to use. Now, in the last game, a lot of people would put in so much time to learn a lot of his tech, like his Malk and just a lot of other random stuff. But in this game, people have kind of not been focusing on it too much because it really isn't that applicable in actual games. But if you could learn how to use all this tech, he has stuff like changing his Monado arts to completely remove landing lag on at least one of his aerials. Of course, swapping between Monado arts multiple times between combos to get maximum potential combos, which is probably never going to happen. And of course, actually dodging attacks with a very small window of vulnerability within changing Monado arts on essentially like 3/4 of attacks, and then comboing your opponent, or just hitting your opponent after that. Which again, that's not going to happen. Nobody's going to be able to do that. But potentially, Shulk could do that. And that's kind of where this is with this character. He has so much stuff he could do if you played him perfectly, but that's probably not going to happen. And I think that's why he's so hard. I think all these things together make him the most difficult character, and especially the highest skill cap character. Now, maybe at the lowest level, you can just spam out aerials and do pretty well. That's kind of how it is, but anywhere past that, yeah, it is going to be really hard to do amazing with this character. I think you don't have to be the best to get decent results, but if you do want to become the best of the best, it's going to take a long time. With all that in mind, those are my own opinions of the hardest characters in Smash Ultimate, and of course you could put a lot of other characters on this list. It is of course just what I'm personally thinking, and I'd like to hear your own opinions down in the comment section down below. If you have your own opinions, tell me what they are, and tell me what characters they are and why they're that character. As well, tell me down below what top 5 you want me to cover in the future, and as well, leave a like or subscribe if you enjoyed this video. As always, the guys who are watching, hope you enjoyed, and have a smashing day.